So thank you very much. It's obviously the most, not the most difficult, but it's not an easy exercise to conclude due to the richness of the debates I heard. Today I heard many things, and I wish I could have been here yesterday. And I'm at the end of the debates before the apéro, before the cocktail, so it's difficult challenge to keep you in this room. So I must tell you that I was born here in Toulon, and I just came out of a panel with the youth, which was extremely interesting. And the first question that was asked by the moderator, well, he said, "What is your local anchoring?" My anchoring is very strong. I come from here, and the strategic events, bring me back here. And what I'll tell you very sincerely is the pleasure of seeing how numerous you are here, and which confirms what I think is that strategic debates, strategic studies, only from Paris or Brussels, it's no longer possible. It's not relevant. So in my role at the Directorate General of International Relations and Strategic Relationships, we're really in line with the need. You're the demonstration that we need more strategic discussion. It's essential. I think this second edition confirms the relevance of this kind of format, this openness, and the fact of doing this here on the shores of the Mediterranean. We need to continue. We need to become more increasingly international. We have to turn these dialogues into reference meetings. You can count on me because I have faith in this, and listening to your debates, I really am convinced of that this is well-founded. A lot of things were said, needless to go back on this, but what struck me in the exchanges, this was quite obvious, is in fact the Mediterranean space. When you look at the general evolutions of the present conflicts and everything, the Mediterranean space concentrates all the evolutions. Nothing surprising to this, because in the end, it's a cradle of culture and of tension sometimes. And it's also a very rich geostrategic space, a lot of drawbacks, a lot of assets. It concentrates strategic trends, as we say at the Ministry of Army. But I would like to go back, try to make a very quick synthesis of your exchanges. The context, the contemporary strategic context is marked by an increase of conflict, in the number of conflicts. It's a fact, and this growth of the conflicts, it translates in the intensity of the conflict. Fortunately, what's happening today, we see since the shock that represented for the region, the terrorist attacks against Israel, the suffering of the Palestinians and Gaza, and the risk that we all had in mind of a regional ramp-up. Of course, we tried to act to avoid it. This intensity and the momentum of conflictuality was marked by the war in Ukraine. I think Nathalie Loiseau, that was right to start her presentation talking about the Mediterranean, addressing the issue of the war in Ukraine. I think it would be a mistake to oppose, again, the north to the south, the east to the west, when you look at the geopolitical context, simply because it's not true. If you take the war in Ukraine, okay, it's a high-intensity war on the European continent. It's a shock, incredible increase. But this war that has a maritime dimension that was mentioned in the exchanges also, in fact, it concerns only the neighboring countries of the Mediterranean. If you look at the east front of NATO, countries are directly concerned by the war in Ukraine. And then this war is a rupture by a permanent member of the Security Council of the UN, of the Charter of the United Nations. Excuse me to be very blunt here, but I heard a lot of debates on the stand of Europe. But if there's one country that does not respect the sovereign choices of a country or its political system or what it wants to build for its future, it's Russia. Russia, with this war, denies to Ukraine its possibility of making its own sovereign choices and denies its territorial integrity against the Charter of the United Nations. And so all this brings us to, this concerns us all because of that. And it directly concerns the Mediterranean space because it was immediately hybrid in its format and used. The destabilization that we see a little bit everywhere in the Mediterranean space, in the Caucasian regions, in the Balkans, in Africa, and in the Middle East. Russia uses the cyber attacks to improve its war effort and demonstrate the divides in the Western world. Demonstrate that the world wants to deploy is the right model. And it is also used, this was raised often in the panel we just had, in the information space. At the beginning, the war in Ukraine did not only concern Europe. When you go to Africa, we heard a lot in Africa. Here, we heard it was the sanctions that give rise to terrible difficulties that are real, objective, including for the food supply. It's the war that gave rise to the situation. It's Russia that decided to make war, to declare war to Ukraine. So you may see this war was thought through as hybrid, but it concerns the Mediterranean region, has a direct impact. The increase in the intensity of conflicts that we see in the Mediterranean and growth, geographic broadening, enlargement of the conflictuality. Extension of the conflicts that exist. We talk about Syria, we talked about Libya. To this, we have the destabilization in Sahel with the coups, military coups, and of course, terrorist threat is growing there because the Sahel countries decided to use their competitors, and they don't no longer fight against terrorism there. So there's a new sanctuary, terrorist sanctuary in Sahel. So the geographic extension of the conflictuality, instability in neighboring regions and in the whole Mediterranean space. And that was said this morning, from the Caucasus regions to Sahel, through Libya. So really the Mediterranean is at the crossroads of this extension of conflictuality, whether in intensity or geographically, and the enlargement also of conflictuality due to the fact that the existing threats like terrorism, the nuclear proliferation, Iran was mentioned. There's an added competition, a growing competition on energy flows, commercial flows, trade flows, new fields of conflictuality. Admiral also mentioned that when talking about the deep sea, and this is deployed in the Mediterranean in the context of a crude competition up to conflictuality. So we see that this Mediterranean space is strategic, and it's really at the crossroads of the evolution of contemporary conflictuality. So we shouldn't zoom out. The Mediterranean is our future. We're in Toulon, and that's where a lot of strategic stakes are being played. And this is happening at a time. There's a third strategic trend, the fragmentation of the international order, fragmentation, and this was also covered by an increase of the Chinese-American rivalry, make difficult the cooperation, traditional cooperation, the assertion of Turkey, for example, or Iran, who have very asserted positions in asserting their position in the region. The role of China, which is also asserting itself in the region with competition of the different powers, and a weakening of the cooperation frameworks with north-south oppositions that are deepening, and this fragmentation, along with this extension of conflictuality, make it increasingly difficult to find solutions.
So, okay, I know this is not reassuring, but this is what you said. So I think, honestly, that because of this fragmentation of the world, so we should not accept the fragmentation of the Mediterranean space, because this would mean that the Mediterranean would become a border between the north and the south, geopolitical border. That would be some kind of a betrayal of our common fate. Let's not be blind, let's not do wishful thinking, but we should not be, pessimistic, and we don't want the Mediterranean space to be a site where all the problems, today's problem, accumulate, climate change, threats, conflicts in the common sea. We should not accept that. We mentioned we even if we're not born here, and therefore I think therefore we should not accept that, and we have strategic lines that I would like to mention rapidly by way of conclusion. First, I heard this morning that we've been we were naive. I think in the strategic plan, we out of this with two military planning law, which made it possible to change our defense with a strategic priority, which is clear. This is, we have to fight for our interests to protect our territory and citizens, supply line and communication line, and work on with the stability, regional stability. But we sometimes they work to do. We have a positive agenda in the region. We could improve things, but we have a. So we fight for freedom of navigation. We have a high level of. We'll have a maritime presence. We work with the member states of NATO, with EU. We advocate for European investment in the Med region, in the domain which have to do with defense strategy, but not only. And we have this agenda at the bilateral level in the last few years. There's been a lot of bilateral treaties signed with Italy, Spain, strategic partnership renewed with Greece. This work from one country to another is important, and it's not. We don't have to choose between the bilateral work and what we do in more regional organization or within the European Union. We also have regional discussion dialogue framework. Everything is complicated in the region, but the 5+5 is a dialogue framework, very efficient, and then there are other formats that should be reinvented but should exist. The Med9 is a format for major issues. The Summit of the Two Shores, the Forum of civil societies, and you are the representatives. And of course, and I'll conclude on this. And the strategic dialogue of the just a quick word. What's amazingly important in everything was said today is that the understandings, the way we talk, the way we say we can talk. We say, having a dialogue without getting mad, but on difficult topics discussed today, I've had a peaceful debate, serene, and obviously this is the key. And I'm back to what a young person who took the floor early on, to the question which was asked, what do we share? Because what can we share between the North and the South and in Med countries? Well, the answer was we need a dialogue without interference. I found that most interesting as a concept. You do an intermediate dialogue, North, South, East, West. which is not done by the others, but by the Mediterranean civil societies you represent and by Mediterranean countries. And this is the, I hope I will be able to help you. So it will be more international and at the open scale, because I think the discussions are essential to fight against all misunderstanding which contribute to the fragmentation of what could be common. Thank you.